declarations, pecuniary interest. None. Motion that the agenda for this evening's proceedings be approved. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Motion carries. Tonight we have 3 reports in front of us, and all just to be receive information and ask questions during on the table. So the first is the ICI recycling, the blue box regulation, and RRCA amendment, CPW 26-10. Motion to receive this report first for information. Councillor Palmer, second, Deputy Mayor, all in favor. Third, carrying this discussion.
I'll be taking that.
Okay.
So thank you. So through the chair, first of all, I'd like to introduce Michelle Courtney from the BRA. She's the president of the BRA Association.
Motorcycling Association.
Yeah. So she'll be taking us through a presentation both on the ICI recycling as well as the green bin program that they have provided a proposal for. So we've got a couple of different presentations today and reports. So we're going to start with the ICI, specifically the commercial blue box, now known as the red lid program. And then we'll dive into the green bin program after that. And we also have a report at the tail end after Michelle departs to talk about water wastewater servicing allocation. So Jake DeRitter is in the room and will be working with me on that.
So Mark, after we do the ICI one, can we pause and we'll receive the green bin one information? Make sure we break the both into 2, okay?
Absolutely. So diving into the ICI, Michelle's going to be walking us through a presentation, but very high level Coles notes from the report. So we've been paying effectively for ICI recycling costs since April of 2024, when that cost fell off of the residential rates for municipalities. We've been paying a reduced cost because BRA has been collecting the ICI, co-collecting with residential recycling, and that's provided some cost savings and efficiencies. Starting in January of this year, that's no longer allowed provincially. So the BRA has taken a somewhat of a financial hit on that, and starting in January, they will be offloading all those costs to the municipality. So we're not talking a huge amount of dollars annually, but to give an idea, I think for 2026, we're looking at around $81,000 a year in 2027 for all of the ICI bins that we have. Are you okay? Thank you. While we get that going, I'll just walk through a couple of the options that we've put forward in the report for council's consideration. So council, with the municipality, put through options at our hand going forward. We could take a do nothing approach, where we relinquish our responsibility going forward at no cost. We could also look at providing administration services similar to what we do for the large garbage bin program that we offer, and have those costs be downloaded to the local businesses that use it. Alternatively, we could also elect to absorb some or any luck. No. We could elect to absorb some or all of those costs for the ICI bins.
Just there so there you go.
I think they're trying to show my presentation. On this. Maybe I could just ask you to clarify before we get started about the bins that are behind in the downtown area specifically, there might be elsewhere, but I know specifically of the bins in the downtown area in the parking lots. Who's paying for those? Because those are the ones that the downtown businesses are primarily used for recycling.
Those are the super safe bins, right? Or they're the red
Yeah.
bins.
No, they're not red lids. These are like big ones that a truck comes and flips over.
The recycling though, you mean the recycling?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
They're all recycling, yeah.
so currently the municipality does pay for those. Going forward,
How many is there? Sorry.
I don't have the exact number.
Well, Rob had a report earlier today.
So they're in a contractual agreement for the properties on Front Street, for the parking lot, we're to provide garbage and recycling, so one garbage, one recycling. I believe there's two behind the clock tower. And there are two recycling bins over by the library.
So, sorry, who's the contract with?
We have a contract with the property owners on Front Street for the lease of their parking lot for the municipality. In that agreement, we are to provide garbage and recycling to those.
So that's only that one block.
That's correct, yes.
And then the other blocks are not paying. Like the ones behind.
One's behind the clock tower. There's no contractual agreement,
Right.
but I believe we pay for them.
And is that the only place in the municipality where those kind of big bins exist?
Other than our recreational facilities and maybe the works yards. I don't know if the works yards have.
Thank you.
I believe the works yard it's a transfer station.
No,
Those different
has their own.
Okay, so that one's probably charged, the transfer station.
I was just kidding.
Right, are we ready for the presentation, Mark? Just keep it,
We're only talking about red lids.
keep it going.
Yeah, okay, so let's, we can move on. Any questions, we can hold it till after. So hand it over now to Michelle.
Yeah, so just doing a quick overview of who we are as the BRA and then the ICNI program. So this just shows geographically the area that we serve. So we serve 19 municipalities over 4 counties here in Perth, Middlesex, and Lambton. So by the numbers, what does that mean? Greg, if you scroll to the next one. That's 188,000 people served and 97,000 households. We manage about 56,000 tons annually, which amounts to about $24 million in revenue and $20 million in assets. And currently we have 83 employees. So for you as a member, what are the benefits? So essentially we are a not-for-profit organization that runs like a municipal cooperative. We have a board of directors that has 2 members, council members from each of the counties. So for you guys, that sits on our board. And the board is there to set the strategic direction for our association. And then myself and my staff kind of run the daily operations. We allow your municipality to have its own solid waste services department, but hands-free from the municipality, and allows your staff to focus on equally as important services. We don't operate or own a landfill, and that's by design, as where our focus is on diverting material, not disposing of. So on to the blue box transition. So the blue box transition really started in 2001 when the first initial report goes. If you want to, sorry, just go to the next slide, Greg. And so from 2021 till 2024 was really us negotiating contracts with the producers and ensuring that we can continue to collect from all of our members. And then we transitioned to the extended producer responsibility on April 1st of 2024. On June 4th of 2025, there was some proposed amendments that came through that I'll talk about a little bit later, but and then finally a letter on October 1st saying that ICNI could no longer be mingled with our residential material. And then that brought us to January 1st of this year, where we went full extended producer responsibility across the province. So operationally for the residents, what did this mean? I think through transition, starting on April 1st of 2024, most residents didn't notice a difference. The transition seemed fairly seamless. We continued to collect at the same frequency, the same days and schedule that they were used to. The containers didn't change and the materials didn't change, and we remained the point of contact. So I think for most residents, they didn't even know that we were in a transition period. Financially for you as a municipality, so as of April 1st, 2024, 100% of the residential Blue Box program fell off of the municipality's books. So we no longer charged you for the collection of the Blue Box material. In actuality, that meant about 95% of the overall recycling cost was removed because there was still the ineligible portion that added up to which is our IC&I that we're talking about now. And as we were able to successfully have the contract, there was no impact on your waste co-collection or your disposal agreements because we were still collecting and going by, so could co-collect and have that discount advantage. So on September 4th of 2025, they finalized the final amendments to the Blue Box reg. So what did these changes mean? So they had they extended the recovery time. So originally, the producers were required to, as of January 1st, recover a larger or an increased target of the items that were recyclable. They deferred that until 2032. So they remain the same as they currently were. They phased in the plastics recovery targets. It's 10% in 2026, and it increases incrementally until 2025, or sorry, until 25% in 2032. The public space adjustments. So in the regulation, wherever a municipality was collecting waste, whether it be in your main streets or on ball diamonds, parks, anything like that, there was an requirement to expand the public space of collection of Blue Box material. And they have removed that entirely from the regulation. And so they're only required to collect where you were collecting prior to December 31st, 2025. And then they also increased energy recovery. So producers can now meet up to 15% of the recovery target through energy recovery through like incineration. So that brings us to January 1st of 2026. And really for our residents, there's been two changes that they've seen. Otherwise, everything stayed the same as in transition. But we have a new expanded box of materials. There's a standard acceptable material listing across Ontario. And so it expanded some of the things that were not acceptable prior to January. And then the IC&I portion, that IC&I material has now been removed from the residential. And so they have separate days and collection schedules than our residents. So when I'm talking about residential, according to the regulation, it's eligible sources. So what are eligible sources? They're your single family homes, your seasonal dwellings, your multi-unit residential buildings, public and private schools, your specified retirement, long-term care, and then the specified public spaces, the ones that were already collected. And so then what's IC&I? So the IC&I is your industrial, commercial, and institutional properties. And as I mentioned, they were explicitly excluded from the Blue Box regulations, and therefore they cannot be collected through the producer EPR program. So that's why as of January 1st, we have all of the red lid bins, and they're collected on a separate route because through the regulation, they can no longer be collected as part of the EPR program. So when we say IC&I as per the regulation, it's non-eligible sources. So what are your non-eligible sources? They're your municipal buildings, campgrounds, commercial farms, industrial commercial properties, not-for-profit organizations, daycares, and places of worship. So where we get to kind of sticky situations are these mixed-use sources. So your downtown core, where you have businesses downstairs and apartments upstairs. Provincially, the correct answer is those can no longer commingle their material. The downtown, or the businesses up and below, they need to have their own recycling and be collected on our IC&I routes. And the upstairs is part of the program, and they are collected via blue lid wheelie bins. Now, we have 5 in your core area that have dumpsters because we can give them wheelie bins because there's no way they get their wheelie bins up or stored. And so those ones we still do collect free of charge. They are supposed to be for the residential collection, but we realize that it's impossible to not have some of the businesses below collecting them. But those are tricky. And the same thing, here where you have a street and you have all houses, but then you have one commercial property, whether it's a house turned into a hair parlor or something like that. And really that one business needs to be collected on our IC&I route and not our residential route, which makes it very inefficient as a collector. Skip the next two slides. So what are the key points of the IC&I recycling is the other services remained unchanged. So the garbage is still being collected the same as it always was and with the residential waste. And quality still matters. So all our commercial recyclables still abide by the old acceptables list. So the one that's up here, they do not have the expanded box. And it is important that they continue to only recycle these items because it keeps our costs low on the processing and the recycling side, as well as it keeps our staff safe at the MRF. And then there is some exceptions that apply. So some properties like schools and long-term care homes are eligible, and it's if they were receiving service prior to December 31st, 2025. But if any new facilities come online now, they are no longer part of the PRO program until they can register in 2031. So this path forward, Mark already kind of alluded to this. So for 2026, we decided to keep our IC&I rates the same. So it was $71.40 per bin for 2026. Now, as an association, we are absorbing a significant amount of costs because, as you can imagine, it's a lot of kilometers driven with very little tonnage for this IC&I route. So actually, since I've made this slideshow, we just had a board meeting last week and we have approved the costs for 2027. So the cost for an IC&I bin will be $160 a bin in 2027. And so right now it shows that we're essentially absorbing approximately $50,000 on behalf of Strathroy-Caradoc for those IC&I bins in 2026. So Mark already kind of talked about the three options there, but really the options that you as a municipality would have would be to absorb the cost within the municipality, pass on some or all of that cost that we will be increasing to the properties, or get out of commercial recycling altogether. As Blue Water Recycling, we would recommend the option number 2 of passing on some cost. There is commercial properties out there with a significant more amount of bins that they actually don't require, but they use them because they're not charged. So having some sort of charge may decrease the amount of bins that you actually have out there. But we do believe that if you were to get out of it completely, then some commercial properties may say, okay, I'm not going to recycle, and in which case they're just going to throw it all into the waste bin. And now we're taking that to the landfill. So I believe passing on some and then the cost of the commercial properties would be your best option. And when I'm sending out an email, it should be by the end of the week to the municipalities asking for clarification on which way municipal council wants to go. And the request would be that if we could get an answer by June 30th, knowing that it's a municipal election year, as well as for us, if municipalities decide to pass on the cost, there may be some situations where a commercial property may be better off to get a dumpster. And in that case, we need to procure those dumpsters if that's the avenue they want to go. So we need some time to get prepared for 2027. And I'll stop there on the IC&I side.
I think that wraps up our discussion on the ICI. Happy to take any questions and
Open it up, just go ahead, folks. We will, just let's be respectful of each other's. I've got a question, just go ahead.
So when you say go to a dumpster, does that work? Like, is that a separate cost that they pay direct to you guys as opposed to running it through the municipality? Or
so we have some options like the waste dumpsters that we have right now. We do provide that as a municipal service to businesses. So they have an option to pay a monthly fee and they get a front end lid dumpster. So we could follow a similar approach with recycling and provide that as a municipal service via the BRA and then offer that and charge the business owners.
is that Mars? Is that
Yeah.
And that's your
That's our division. It's just our front end division. Mars Environmental.
What does it cost for a dumpster for the front end?
For recycling,
Yeah, either for recycling or for garbage that we're collecting in.
So the garbage right now you use Super Safe, right? Not us. For the recycling, it's $44 a lift.
Is there any storage fee for it sitting there? Or?
As long as you're getting once a month service.
Is there any sense what are other municipalities doing? Any sense? So,
We talked about that at our board meeting.
yeah, go ahead, Greg, you're on, by the way, Greg's our board rep, so.
Yeah, so we talked about that at the board and what most of them are doing. We're looking at passing along the full number. If they have more than 3 bins, it actually makes sense to get the dumpster at the $44 a lift, which is gonna hold more than the bins and be less expensive.
Did you say that they're passing it on to the?
Yeah, so
The whole
the whole thing. So the whole thing is 100, because if you look at the cost, $170 a year is like $15 a month. You can't get anything for $15 a month. You can't go to your own private service. So it's not that expensive. And if you look at it now, there with everything, the reason we were able to subsidize and get it down to $70 a month before is because Blue Water would process the recycling and then sort out the different materials and sell those materials and then take that money and put it back to reduce the cost. Can't do that anymore because the producers are now recycling and getting that cost back as they're funding the program. So because we've lost that revenue, the cost was gonna go up. So with it only being $100 a month per bin, or $100 per year per bin, a lot of the other counselors and Mary's on the board, they've talked and the best way is just to transfer it on, and if they have more than 3 bins, like the vet clinic in Mount Bridges, they put out like 7 bins. They're probably just gonna go to a dumpster because most of their bins probably aren't full anyways. And then it'll actually save them money.
Just to give you an idea, we have 1 garbage, 1 cardboard, 1 recycling, and we pay roughly $1,100 a month for that service, 1 pickup a week,
You said $1,100.
$1,100 a month.
And we're talking about 170 per year. One of which the bins the same size as the other house.
I'm just as, something to step off it into the conversation with. I'm finding it difficult to tax the entire population and then to benefit a specific sector. We didn't create this. This is a provincial mandated process and stuff. So I'm like, pass it fully over to the businesses.
Which is exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly. No, I'm agreeing.
Okay, so
With what you were saying. Yeah, no, I do. But I'm coming at it from the idea that we'd be taxing all of the residents to pay for IC&I, which I find unfair. Just let the IC&I sing live.
Can I just ask for clarification? So they started out with blue lids, right? What were they paying for blue lids?
You mean the ICI?
Well, like every one of us has a blue, a recycling bin, right? Which is what they had before. We just switched the lid.
it was $71.40 per year.
So that's what they paid annually, like same as I pay.
Same as a house, yeah.
Right. So now they're gonna go to 170?
One's $100 more a year.
So
Okay.
pre-April 2024, though, there were no costs being charged to the anybody. And then after that, the municipality had been absorbing that cost. So for the last
It's
year.
not on the tax bill.
Essentially, it was built into your waste user fees.
So just for clarification, when I got a new bin, because I did phone in and I wanted a bigger bin, so I went from the little bin to the other bin and they said that bin is $87 a year. And this one is $97 a year.
On your waste side, the black lid.
So not the recycling, because I got both of them. So we weren't paying recycling at all.
It was all based on your waste size. There was no recycling charge.
Okay, because we were getting it paid back through them selling,
And you're different than commercial.
but I wasn't. All we did was pull the lid off and change it to red.
Correct.
Okay, so at one point, we were all the same. Now I'm different. I understand now I'm different.
Yeah, as of last year.
What I was trying to make out was, what was it costing us here to there? So if we were seeing it for free, then I guess the increase is $170 on your taxes.
My
To
question,
switch to a red lid.
my question on us seeing it for free though, is I thought we were collecting money that we were putting into reserve where did that money come from if we weren't already paying for it? Because
Any revenue from the waste stream is, I understand, going into waste reserves. So, but pre-April 2024, that there was no cost, or there was no cost to the there was cost to the municipality, and then that fell off the books entirely.
So the cost to the municipality is the money I was talking about. So and here's where it gets a little bit confusing, because I've been kind of watching this. So we have the charge on our tax bill that was for one garbage and one recycling. And if I remember right, maybe it was around $150 per both, or 165, or something in around that range on my tax bill. At April 2024, the municipality no longer had to pay the BRA for it. So that came off, and then it went down to about 2/3 of that number. So that number should have put about $300,000 into our reserves in 2024, and about $450,000 this year. So we should have, because people were paying for it prior to April 2024, then the producers took over that payment. And they haven't actually changed how much we're paying to the municipality on our tax bill.
Oh, I thought you said that the bill went changed. Your tax still changed in 2025.
So who pays for the service change? So we didn't pay for it. It went to the producers instead of the
The
municipality.
bills never changed.
But the bills to the residents never changed. I think they have the inflation index.
Go ahead, Steve.
I guess from a theoretical perspective, the only place this really matters is downtown, right? Like where you have code collection issues, right? You've got multiple businesses using the same.
But that's separate.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to clarify.
Right, but like, so if you go out to Dollarama and all, they all have their own waste collection services,
Yeah.
right? They're not using.
Yeah.
The municipal service, right? It's really only in the downtown core where.
It's everywhere that's got a red lid, so it's like, it's all the businesses and all the downtown businesses and Mount Bridges, it's every business that's not in the downtown, it's every municipal building, it's every arena,
So
it's not using a dumpster.
thankfully, lots of, with the exception of arenas. Lots of businesses potentially using the same bins, right?
I looked as of today, your community has 547 red lids.
That's way more than downtown.
Yeah.
There isn't that many downtown.
A lot of your downtown's probably using the dumpsters, which we do have five of them between Front and Frank
Yeah,
that we provide for free.
so that's my question, like, as a business owner, why am I gonna pay to have a red lid when I got the free dumpster?
In theory, we're not supposed to provide that for free.
But historically, it's always been provided for free, so that's why I asked for that to be included in the discussion, because that weighs in. If you're gonna continue that, then no one's gonna buy a red bin, because, well, I just put my cardboard in the big bin. But if you got rid of the big bins, then everybody then would have to buy their red bin.
And you're only talking about just this one block, like the rest of the municipality,
Yeah.
that 500 people have to.
Yeah, but those other people don't have the option. I'm just saying, it's a little confusing downtown and regarding the bins and who's paying for them and like how long they've
But
been
that's a
there.
parking deal as to why those bids are there. So that's a completely separate contract that we are
Yeah.
providing them. They're giving us their parking. We're giving them a bin.
Only on the one side, not on the other side.
Behind Boston's.
Only behind Boston's. There's others downtown that aren't in that situation.
But we're, okay.
But I guess the point that
They
I
have
have made
a
is,
separate-
And all I was trying to say was if they were already paying 71 for a blue lid and they're now going up, it's only $100 more a year. We're getting way out of hand with, just tell them, you can do the red lid or you can get your own dumpster. I think we're analyzing this to,
I would agree.
I do too.
So based on that discussion, I want to put forward the motion to follow option 2, which is we bill the full cost to the people who get the red bin bins.
Why don't we,
Yeah, you're-
why don't we hold that? We're here just to receive information,
Just
right?
information.
Oh, okay, I thought we were supposed to make a
No,
motion or recommend.
No, it's just receiving for information, but let's save it till we get all the information. There may be more questions that fall out of this. I think we're all gonna agree with you, Greg. Let's just wait till that.
Yeah.
Wait till the time. Any more questions on this one? Okay, let's go to the green bins. We all agree,
Yeah.
Council meeting.
So shifting gears to the green bin, Michelle's going to walk us through a presentation again. The green bin is a program that's being There's a lot of municipalities in Ontario that currently offer organics collection and processing. We're in a position where we're at the cusp from a population standpoint. Our current population, census population is 88 people per square kilometer. If we look at updated data from other sources, we could be pushing that 100,000 person per square kilometer, and that triggers a need to do organics recycling, organics processing. So effectively a green bin program. We're not there officially yet. We are waiting for census data for 2026, which I believe will be available about a year from now. So at this time, we don't have any regulatory obligation, but it is possible that it's coming down the pipeline as early as next year. Yeah, so with that, maybe I'll hand it over to Michelle.
Sure. So looking at before 2020 or 2017, if you just go up a couple slides, right? It showed that as an association, one more, yeah. We actually had 24 landfills in our coverage area that we could dispose of material at. Going to the next slide, after 2024, we are down to 15.
Wow.
So just showing even in our local area how landfill capacity is an issue. If our municipalities don't have their own landfill, then all that material goes to Twin Creeks, like your material does in Wofford. Now, part of the regulation change with the producers taking over the cost of the blue box, the ministry's expectation there or hope was that municipalities would use that to look at other ways of diverting material from the landfill. So one option is organic collection. So we've done some local composition audits of our material that's in the wheelie bins, and our audits show that about 40% of the entire waste stream is actually compostable material. So that's about approximately 190 kilograms of material per household that we could capture and divert from the landfill.
Michelle, just throw in there, could you, the difference between rural and urban collections?
Yeah, so in our composition study, it showed that there was no difference between urban and rural.
Sure.
Although we know that some farmers put material on the fields, when we did the actual audit study, it showed that in general, on average, there was no change. Now, whether that's our new society where everyone does whatever's convenient, whether it's to avoid the wildlife. I've also heard there's an increase in renters, and so it's not their property, so they don't want to use it for compost. Whatever the reason may be, our audit study showed that there was really no difference in the makeup of the material between rural and urban. So we partnered with Try Recycling as an option for organic collection. We like Try for what they have as the end product. So they use a flexible in-vessel system where they do windrows of the compostable material. They cover it with a Gore-Tex jacket, essentially, and pump heat and oxygen into it. And in the end, it becomes soil that goes into a Scott's bag that you can buy as potting soil. So it really has a full life and helps with the circular economy. Also with Try, as well as Convertus that I did the organic quote for, they have different types of material. So it's not only your food waste, but it's also your leaf and yard waste, which makes a huge increase in the amount of material that you can divert if you can mix both of those into a green bin. And so what we would recommend is if you wanted to consider organics, a typical pattern would be that you would collect organics weekly, and then you would alternate your other items. So waste would go every other week, and recycling would go every other week. And that's your organics is your stinky factor, the material that you want to make sure you get rid of every week, and then what's left in your waste should be, I don't know, your hard plastic that's not acceptable, or some toys, that sort of thing. But anything that can sit for a couple weeks, and then your recycling is already bi-weekly anyways. So that's what we would recommend. We'd also, what we're recommending is the 65 liter container. So that's your middle waste bin right now. We have the small, medium, and weight and large. It would be the medium. And the reason for that is because it does include leaf and yard waste. We only do automated collection, so we wouldn't be looking at doing like the City of London that has those small little containers, because the only way to collect those would be to hand bomb them into the truck, and we're all automated, and it's much safer for our employees to do it that way.
So in London, residents are given a little bin to put their waste in to take outside. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so there still is a little container that they can have on the counter or
On the
whatever
counter.
and throw it into the dumpster. And then here we just have an example of a video. Are you able to get it up on YouTube?
I don't think so. Sorry.
The recommendation for the type of lid is we would have a locking lid. The idea there is just to keep wildlife out. So this, if you Google Franz and Lock on YouTube, you can find this video and it shows what it looks like. But essentially, it wouldn't have a key. It would just be a knob, but you would just have it always to lock. And then when our trucks dump it, it automatically has a magnetic system that unlocks it when it's hung upside down, and then it locks it back up. So they don't have to make sure it's unlocked, that it's locked at collection day, anything like that.
To put that into it though, you want to physically unlock it.
Yes, it would be like a knob. So you wouldn't have to, I mean, we wouldn't do a key so that you could lose the key, but yeah, you just have to twist it to throw things in. But the one negative with organics that I hear, it would be the smell or the wildlife's collecting. So this way, if it knocks over, you're not getting that spillage on the side. So that's all I have on the organic.
So Mark, you think I'll bring over. This is coming at us one way or the other, right? It's either today or tomorrow, we're going to be compelled to do this, correct?
Unless the province changes course, we're heading in that direction. There's 2027 beyond.
Yeah, they don't. And then another thing, then I'll turn it over to everybody. So I just going to collect all the costs that I did. Because earlier in the recycling, we talked about the savings coming from the recycling, sitting in reserves. I did some research. I went to municipality. So Windsor, the mayor of Windsor was asked, how are they going to pay for it? He said, the cost savings from the city no longer operating recycling will go towards the new green bin program. So I'm curious to see some kind of financial to understand, right? So if I understand, the collection cost with Tri is almost $30. I'm assuming that's a year. It's $29.66. Is that a year?
That would,
Per household, yeah.
Correct. So I'm just interested in like, it's coming just the financial analysis, like if we're not collecting tax dollars towards recycling, like I don't really understand the whole financial piece. That's, if it's coming, it's coming. I just want to understand.
Yeah, I'll share, and then I might ask our treasurer to comment too. But so in the report, we identify an incremental cost. It's around a total of $460,000 based on our estimates. And that's incremental to what we pay now across the board. So we go from weekly waste and garbage to bi-weekly garbage and then weekly organics. So that's an additional cost to what we pay now. So going back to the recycling, the residential recycling since April 2024, since that's fallen off of the books, we have made reserve contributions on average of 480,000 in 2024 and 2025. So the actual amount annually is a little bit higher than that. So the savings we're getting in recycling would be able to fully fund the organics program as it is now.
And the cost is just, so I'm looking at Councilor Durbin, because I know my daughter does the same thing being in the country. They won't need a green bin. They just take it, they have their own compost. So this is only if you avail yourself of.
This is actually based on including the rural populations, and maybe I'll let Michelle speak to the rural issue.
Yeah, but everybody's gonna get a bin. It's gonna cost you. So if it's $30 more than recycling, which recycling we were paying for, we're now putting into reserves. If it's gonna be a hair short, So our taxes are gonna go up $34 to pay for a green bin and whatever.
A little bit different on that because we were paying about $60 to $70 for a recycling bin. And this one, there's 10,000 residences, and if we get in with Tri, it's 460,000, which is only 46. So it's gonna be about $20 less than recycling.
Yeah, that's my need to see this comes back in front of council, just to see the.
What,
the
we're,
financials.
So it's the recycling.
we're almost a wash.
It's gonna be the
Yeah.
same, and we're still gonna be putting money into reserves if we go with Tri. The only thing that we want to be mindful of is if we go with convert, if we delay and we have to go with Convertus later. And I'll let one of the directors, Michelle, speak to capacity. But if we miss getting in with Tri because they're full, our cost goes up by $30 a household. And Tri Recycling, when we did the tour, I went with BRA and Mark and some of our staff, and we did the tour of Tri Recycling. They said that they've started the program. They're already having to expand because of demand. Once they get full, they don't know if they're gonna have another license to expand further. So if we don't get in and we don't book this capacity,
So
we may not have an option to go and try.
I'll ask you or something, but when does Tri need to know, have an answer from our council?
I think they've always.
I do at the same time as around June that we want to do for the garbage. The ICNI.
They've never given us a date that we need to get back to them by in order to, guarantee that cost.
No, but during our meeting, they said it's first come, first served for their,
Absolutely.
we don't want to wait either.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Any more questions? Donna?
So how does it work for, is this just for single family homes or is it for apartment buildings?
Would be for all if you wanted it to be. Multi-res has more trouble like sorting, separating. But it would be up to them whether they wanted the organic dump or bins or not. The ones I would say whoever has a wheelie bin now, then should be able to have a wheelie bin for organics, but if you have dumpsters, then organics is
Right.
right.
And restaurants don't participate in this generally, or?
Generally not. This is just households, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And to answer the question before, this would be based on every household having a bin. You could choose to do it in urban or in rural. And my price basically doesn't change, it just decreases by the amount of households that are having it, because I still have to travel those roads. And basically, because one neighbor composts but the other one doesn't, I have to charge you the same for whether they take a bin or not. They can decide not to have the bin. But since basically Mark is saying that the cost is covered by what you saved in Blue Box, and their user fees aren't going to change anyway, so they're not going to know a difference. They can just choose to get a green bin or not.
Good, Steve.
Yeah, last summer at the market, this was probably the most asked question. When are we getting a green bin recycling post, especially anybody that moved from the KW area, right?
Yeah.
They're used to having it. I think the public is expecting it. So I don't think there'll be a whole lot of complaints about it. Two questions I have. Would we not see a reduction in price on the garbage because we should be having a lot less garbage going to landfill? Is that factored in already?
So yes, but your disposal is it's almost equivalent to the processing of organics versus the disposal of waste. So that kind of.
Right.
Yeah, it cancels each other out.
What about so my own biggest creator of waste is my cats.
I was asking about that too. That waste.
Yeah. So what happens, is pet waste something you can put in or not?
It's not compost, it's garbage. So that's the only disadvantage on the bi-weekly, which you could do a weekly waste, but obviously that is a lot more expensive
Yeah.
because I have to send another truck down the road because I don't have 3 compartment trucks. So that the one disadvantage on the bi-weekly waste is any kind of kitty litter or diapers.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Should go. He's been patient.
Comment, I wasn't really fussy about green bins, but I see that when 40% of 60% of waste is going to be diverted, but we're talking almost 80% of the waste is going to be diverted. You kind of bought me in on that point. I think a lot of our citizens in the urban area would like to have the ability to take their grass clippings and dump in there, or their flower trimmings at the end of the year, and because what do you do with that stuff? As opposed to putting them in I'd throw them in the truck, but people putting them in their trunks and taking them out to the transfer station. So I think a lot of people would really enjoy that, to get rid of it. The question I have for you is posed by somebody that was already talking about this to me. Could you put a compostable garbage bag in a green bin and send out your compost that way so that your bin stays clean?
There will be approved garbage bins, but it would be will put those out. That wouldn't be through me, but they have certain ones that they're testing and they would say you can put them in this type of bag and put it in.
Okay, that's great.
Yep. Donna, you had about diapers.
Is this the same schedule and the type of bin that London currently uses or KW? No,
No, the London has a smaller green bin.
Okay.
Which you can't really put a lot into it. Benefit of
picked up weekly?
it's picked up weekly, yes,
Has their garbage moved back?
bi-weekly.
Because you hear a lot of problems in London right now with rats. And I hear a lot of chatter about that being a result of this switch, either because the garbage is sitting too long, or we now have more edible product ready for a rat. So just wondering, but you think that this locking might,
I've heard it works really well. They use it in other areas. The region of Waterloo just switched to the same kind of size bins that we're doing. A lot of the other communities have the small ones. The town of Goderich has the smaller, like 35 gallons, but they don't usually, but they still have like the bigger bins.
So I guess what worries me in the rural area is the garbage collection. When I drive around, I see a lot of us still have smaller bins, so maybe there's going to have to be an upgrade to the large bin but I think every 2 weeks is probably gonna clog us up pretty good out in rural. A
I
lot.
think it makes up most of it. That's in the waste.
I don't think it's compost, but I could be wrong. I mean, if you think, if you're studying this, I find when you get out into the rural area, normally you have a household that has 2 parents plus 3 or more kids. There's probably a lot of just garbage, plastic, stuff that maybe it does go into the recycling now.
So they may need to, because there's a lot of the expanded box of materials. It has a lot of the flexible plastic, any kind of paper packaging at all is acceptable. Tetra Packs, all of that stuff is now acceptable. I'm living that way. I live in town, but I have 3 young boys, 11, 10, and 5. So I'm living the life, but I do find that my recycling bins fill every week, but not necessarily my waste. And I do throw in a lot of organics that I wish I could have a green bin for. But they could always upgrade if they have a small one. I do have a larger one, so that could be.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that might be a program that would have to think about as possibly moving.
I was kind of thinking that I thought with everyone who's doing it completely collection to bi-weekly, we may want to go just eliminate the small bins and go right to the meetings.
I just, so a request out to the director from me anyways, but I think all of council would want to see this, listening to the conversation would be, when this comes back to us, and I'm sure it will, I'd like to see, the cost, right? So if you maintain weekly of everything, if those type of options, because I think Donna has a great point. People are going to be concerned about losing weekly garbage. We've always had that in Strathroy-Caradoc. So that I'm thinking is probably going to be our big consideration, is how this program looks as opposed to, does the program have a look? I think it does. What's the cost? He's moving through his hand up a bit quick.
So, I guess my question would be, as we probably move towards this, there's gonna be some kind of public education campaign that goes with it.
Yeah, we would be undertaking a pretty extensive, public engagement, social media and, a campaign.
That's a brand.
Yeah, I have no concern with the garbage because I've been composting for 20 years. So I bought 50 by 100, built up all my garden beds. But the thing is that even when the 3 kids were at home, we'd have like almost no garbage. Yeah, we'd have like 1 or 2 bags of garbage. The rest would all be recycling and everything else in the compost. So it may be that people want a bigger bin, but they might discover once you're pushing everything into the organics, you practically have nothing left because if you're recycling properly.
Even
That's
the
been
stuff
my experience for 20 years.
like Q-tips and facial tissue, that's all going in organics, right?
Q-tips, I'm actually not sure about. Soiled paper can go in the organics.
Yeah.
Any more?
Just a comment, I think for a lot of years, the recycling, there was often a change based on what you guys could market the end product, right? So there was a change in what was acceptable in recycling. And I think it sounds to me like that's pretty stable now and will stay stable. So once people learn what can be recycled, because like a Tim Hortons coffee cup, like can you or can't you, right? And if you can now,
Or you can,
once that's in your mind, it'll stay there and you'll just keep recycling it. Yeah, yeah. So I think that'll make a big difference in reducing garbage once people are fully sure that they know which bin they got to put it in.
Hey, seeing no more, thank you for that. We're gonna lose a couple at 6, so we can move on to the water and wastewater.
thanks for having me, everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry, I need a motion to receive it. I apologize. Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Paul, all in favor, carried. My apologies.
Thank you. Good presentation, Megan.
Yeah.
Very good. And your drivers do a great job on this.
Good, yeah, good, glad to hear. I got dog treats for my dog. Yeah, that's good.
So we'll move on to the water and wastewater servicing allocation policy, motion to receive for information. Deputy Mayor, somebody, Councilor Colquitt, favor, motion carries.
Okay, so changing topics, water, wastewater servicing allocation. I don't want to steal all of Jake's thunder, but policy that we're looking at today is really to help bring some guidelines to how and when we allocate water, wastewater capacity, primarily to developments, residential developments for the most part. So Jake will go over the report and some of the consultation that we've undertaken as part of it. I'll just say that this is really the front-facing document. This doesn't really dive into the details of how we monitor and manage our existing capacity. We all know there's an issue with Mount Bridges right now. We need to do our work on our end to ensure that we understand what the capacity is at the plants and that we're forecasting and planning appropriately. So this is really more of a planning tool to advise developers more than anything. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jake.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just give a super quick rundown of sort of how the policy is intended to function. So like Mark mentioned, it's intended to outline that point in time in the planning approval, development approval process when we're formally allocating capacity. Right now, we don't have that sort of point for each development. We have kind of what we generally practice, but not set in stone. So this policy outlines when exactly we do that for every different type of application. There's a nice summary chart that we have included here on the policy that outlines each type of application, when it gets allocated. The other thing this is doing is adding an expiry to allocation. So one thing we want to avoid is a situation where a subdivision site plan has gotten through the approvals and then they sit on the land for years. And we don't want that capacity tied up when somebody else maybe can use it. That's critical when we're in some place like Mount Bridges where capacity is limited. Some place like Strathroy where capacity currently is not super limited. The expiry doesn't matter as much, but it's really just trying to not tie up that capacity for somebody who actually wants to build. And we have some stuff in here about some potential extensions. So we did send this around to every single developer in the municipality, plus some. And the feedback we got was good, generally in support. There's a couple minor things that people have concerns about, but it was more just clarification on the policy. Some concerns were if we're building, we don't want to lose our capacity, which is 100% the intent. If somebody's building, they will not lose their capacity. It's only when they're not building. So again, we generally got support for this. I think it makes it clear for developers when they get capacity so that they can sort of plan on their end as well, because when they get capacity and when they're willing to put some capital into the ground, it all plays on their side for their planning. So I think this clearly sort of sets that out. And, yeah, happy to answer any questions on the policy itself.
Steve,
So when we talk about the urban boundary specifically, we're just and the property owner has the ability to jump the process and demand that they be included. Would this then be a way to kind of prevent that from happening? Because if they don't have capacity, then there's no reason to include them in your boundary.
Yeah, we would probably still have to include them in the boundary, but they'd get caught up later in the process, right? So for if it's a subdivision, they'd get caught up at the agreement stage. That we wouldn't recommend entering into an agreement with somebody when there's no capacity. So we probably still have to go through all to do their own settlement boundary expansion and that, but we would catch them later, absolutely. In the policy, there's some language, I think it's towards the end there, that if there's no capacity, nobody gets allocated, and so you can't proceed.
Right.
So it would catch them later.
Like, just my fear would be that as at some point in time, Wilka Kilworth can run out of land, and then that just moves, one step down the road, right? And we could face a lot of pressure that we currently aren't having. I just want to make sure we can make it.
Yeah, and the other part of this Mark kind of touched on is this sets it out clear for us as well, right? So we can do a little bit better tracking on our end, on what is allocated versus what's not. So hopefully that sort of advanced tracking will help us in situations like that. There will be potentially unforeseen things because anybody can request to be brought in now, but this all just sort of plays into us being able to track it better.
Just on that note, it does say lands located outside the settlement boundary as defined by the municipality will not be provided allocation capacity. In order to get in, you have to show as part of the process that there is water and capacity. Like, I guess, are we actually blocking them right now with this policy by saying you're not allowed to have any of the allocation if you're not in the urban boundary?
It's one of the checks that they would have to do as part of their application to be brought in, like their official plan amendment to be brought in, is servicing and allocation. The reality is 99% of properties outside the current boundary won't have services, right? They'll need to extend services. So that'll all play into it.
And I understand that it says we will not provide allocated capacity.
Yeah.
So their application will be denied because they're not allowed to have capacity.
But they won't be formally allocated unless they're in the settlement boundary, right? So they'll go through the official plan amendment to be brought in. They'll do the servicing studies as part of that process. Assuming that gets approved, then they can be allocated once they start going through their plan of subdivision or site plan or whatever it is.
So I guess my question would be, as they're proposing to the government that they want to come in, we have to say that there's capacity for them to come in.
They have to do this.
Which I understand they're not actually getting capacity, but the way I would read it here is you're not allowed if you're not in the boundary. Like, it almost seems like it's a catch-22 of, if we're not going to give them capacity because they're out of the boundary, then how do they get in the boundary without being allotted the capacity for the land that's coming? Or at least the ability to say, there is the capacity, you can have it once you're in. It sounds to me like we're telling them.
Well, I think, when any development goes through the process, we don't tell them if there's capacity or not. They have to do the studies, right? So I think it's no different here. If someone's being requested to be brought in the settlement boundary, they have to do the studies to show there's capacity. If there is, they can make their way through that process. And then once they get to this stage in this policy, then formally allocate it, right? So
I get it. I'm just saying, if you read this policy, it says
What section?
you're not allowed to, it's the last one, number C.
Yeah.
It says allocation will not be provided.
We can work on.
So
on
you
that.
can ask for allocation. Your policy says, we're not giving you allocation because you're out of the settlement boundary.
It's gonna be like, they're gonna follow a process. They're gonna get in the boundary first.
But how do you get in the boundary if you have to have allocation? So there's enough.
I'll chime in on, this was one of the changes that we made, and it was triggered, to be honest, from someone, an individual property owner who wasn't in the settlement boundary, who was outside of the settlement boundary, not looking for a development, but an existing property looking to connect. And that provides a little bit of a complication when you have a settlement boundary that you're trying to prioritize developments, and then you have people outside of the settlement boundary looking to utilize servicing. And they could be utilizing high water and wastewater consumption at that point, which would ultimately take away from developments. So yeah, the wording, we could take a look at the wording. I think what Jake meant, like as Jake mentioned, is not to prevent people from being included in the settlement boundary. It's really to prioritize at any given moment. We have a certain amount of capacity available, and it should be allocated and prioritized to those within the settlement boundary at that time.
It's really no different than we're doing our settlement boundary review right now, right? We're gonna be bringing in extra lands. We're not formally allocating them through this policy, those extra lands that we're bringing in. But we've done the servicing constraint study to back up the settlement boundary expansion, right? It's no different. Any private landowner has to go through the same process that we are doing as a municipality. So they're doing the studies to back it up. We're just not formally allocated. We may track it on the back end, but they don't formally get allocated until they actually have a plan of subdivision or a site plan.
And that has really nothing, and just to jump in, I don't think that has anything to do with the actual plant capacity. It has to do with the pipe capacity. And if we can call it, not if we can treat it, but if it actually fits in the pipe, then that's a good place for subdivision in the future. It's what you would.
They're related, but yes.
Yeah, to the system.
Yeah, as long as this doesn't prevent people from getting in, because we tell people all the time, hey, if you want in, go and do your studies and you can bring your own land in.
Yep.
Now, if this section C here, if we go and tell people, the developers, hey, you can get and do this, and this stops them here because it says,
Yeah.
you basically aren't allowed to have any capacity outside of this.
For sure.
Is there a difference between the idea that we have capacity or there is capacity as opposed to the fact that we've allocated you capacity, right? I think all they have to do is show that there is capacity, or they're gonna land speculate. And I'm sure that happens all the time, where they're just sitting for 20 years waiting for a community to do their servicing in a certain area. But I mean, if they have to show it, it's like,
It does sound like we're saying we're prioritizing allocation for land already in the urban boundary.
Yeah, so I think maybe that's a word that
And
we.
maybe that's some language we could put into this to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're not saying no to step outside the boundary. We're saying that the priority for allocation exists for those properties that are already within the urban boundary. And if the document could reflect that more clearly, it might make the distinction a little bit more understandable for people outside the boundary as to what's going on here. We're not saying no. We're just saying the people who are already inside the urban boundary have the priority for allocation.
Yeah.
Sure, the boundary, you'll be pretty safe.
I guess, do you know, Jake, if somebody went for an application to bring their land into urban boundaries, do they have to show that they actually have allocation? Or do they just have to show that there's capacity in the system?
They, like any development, they just need to show that there is capacity.
Okay.
We would not formally allocate them until they get later in the process through like the plan of subdivision.
Yeah, and I can see that from your chart, when you actually allocate.
Yeah.
Period, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, you only have to show that there is potential for capacity there.
But it might go further than allocation, it should be as Greg was saying, the pipes. Like how easy would the allocation be? It might be that there's space, but this particular property applying is in a certain situation where it's just not going to work with our system unless you spend a hell of a lot of money putting in some new piping, because the piping is already,
That may be on the till.
for that section is already over capacity. So it might be by case, the allocation might, the capacity might be there, but for that site, access to the system might be an insurmountable barrier. Yeah, and the document could reflect that too, because the case by case scenario for people bringing land in isn't simply capacity. It's the logistics of hooking up to our existing system. And you might have all kinds of capacity, but at that location, it's just not gonna work unless you spend $5 million.
I got a question on regards to Mount Bridges. I'm not gonna articulate it properly, and I'm sure others. Let's imagine 10 years down the road, maybe sooner, where we have all the capacity we need for the settlement boundaries and to take on the existing people on Mount Bridges who aren't connected. Where or should it, or does it need to be in here somewhere where it speaks to the fact that you have current Mount Bridges residents who aren't hooked up to the capacity? Right? So I read this, there's nothing like that says that a certain amount of capacity is reserved for the future hookup of current residents to Mount Bridges. I'll leave it up for council. I don't know if it needs to be in there, if I'm complicating it, but I just think of the.
I was actually one of my questions I was going to ask.
I read your notes before we came in. I just wonder if it should be in there because it may save some issues down the road, right? Where you want to say to people, developers, when settlement boundary gets bigger, well, you've got capacity, but no, we've reserved a certain amount for the current residents in Mount Bridges. I just wonder if there should be specific language in there for, and I don't know what the verbiage is, Greg, you might have it to say, to recognize there's a need among Bridges or someday, somehow, hook up the current residents.
We don't spell out Mount Bridges specifically in the policy, but the understanding is that within the settlement area boundary, existing residents are effectively allocated capacity to the wastewater system.
Say that
We don't spell that out, but
I
that.
wonder
that
if
is
you
the
could, though, I just think it's important. It's gonna be important for future council. When you think of how the Mount Bridges system originally got built, it was built for existing residents.
No, it wasn't.
Was it?
No. No, there was a spine that was inevitably to lend to expansion of Mount Bridges.
Oh, okay. I'll stand corrected. I'll go back and check Mel's.
So are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yep, I don't think so. There was no plan ever to go back and systematically go through the village to.
Well, we'll have to, that'll be a separate discussion then amongst, because we will set up that one then, because that's what the feeling of Mount Bridges. But I think we need that length. That'll be an over the ginger ale discussion.
Just to add that differently, the one question I had about this policy is I would like to see some sort of reporting added to it. And just maybe a report, very similar to what we're doing with the reserves, where I say how much total there is, what's allocated and what's remaining. Just at a very high level. And I would like to see something like that, that would say, all right, we have, I can use the numbers in Mount Bridges, or all the numbers in Strathroy, so they don't get negative. We have 10,000 of capacity. We have 3,500 that's being used. We have these developments that have allocated capacity for another 3,500, which takes us to 7,000, which means there's 3,000 left. And then every time, and my thought would be that report would be updated every time new development comes on. So say the lands near the high school get developed and they want another 500. So right now there's 8,500 that are being used and there's only 1,500 left. And then I would make the request that report, just very high level, just is updated every time we get a new subdivision that's approved or we allocate capacity or annually so that it's easy for people to find. So not a lot of staff work, because I think we're already doing all that work. It's just makes it easy for the developers.
Section 5 does say that we'll track it and do an annual report. So you mentioned something a little bit further about each development approval, which I think is a good idea. But at a minimum, we do have the annual report.
And for the annual report, I just want to make sure that we have very similar to what we asked for the reserves. What our total is, how much are we using, what's allocated, what's left. And just very detailed, still high level, but it makes it very easy that anybody can look at that page and say, well, all right, in Strathroy with all, if we build everything that's planned, we need a new plant. Which we may or may not, maybe we're only, I don't know where the numbers come from. And Mount Bridges based on Reverend Anderson says we have 800, we've allocated 2,500, so we should, but just that kind of, get high level, you can look at it and don't have to spend a lot of time to understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. we tend to bring something like that. It might not look exactly like that, but something very similar to council. One challenge we face is with infill and in industrial.
And that's why it's gonna change every time, so it's, but at least as it gets to a high level and know when we're getting close to that next limit. The other part in here is because we're only talking about in the settlement boundary, I'm specifically gonna go back to Mount Bridget again, but on the water side. There's the water line that runs through Campbellville and West Delaware and a number of areas that actually are not in the settlement boundary. Hollandia Cookies as well, they've all got town water, but they're all on private septic and private waste. There's like that whole, I'm gonna say that's probably close to 10% of the municipality of that area. What is our policy for water and septic there? Can somebody out in that area put in an industrial or something that's half serviced? I don't see anything in here about areas outside of the settlement boundary that already have partial services.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the trigger points for the last point that Councillor Derbyshire noted there, which we state outside the settlement area boundary that there's not going to be allocated capacity.
And they might not get wastewater, but if they already have water, like, are we gonna not let them have water either when water is already running there and they're outside of it? Because that's what that comes into against the housing one, because if you look at what I just did, just use my house, for example, I was already serviced with water. I just added and increased my service size. Actually, I didn't mention change my meter, but I just use more water now because there's two houses on the same bit.
Yeah.
Are we going to allow that? How does that play into the capacity? Like, that isn't anywhere in here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna back up, Greg, because that was my question. You read it. I don't know, because I'm cognizant what's happened in St. Thomas. They're building the big power code plant and nobody thought to ask the Lake Erie pipeline about water. Now they suddenly realize they have a huge. There's just some language about water in there, right? I know we're focusing on wastewater, but and we allow people with half service to build subdivisions, so somebody could expand down to Campbellville or somewhere, and I know we have. I'm aware of the St. Thomas issue. They have an issue up in St. Thomas.
We can beef up the language in terms of partial servicing. I think at this time, the intent is
Maybe do something where we won't.
it's a case by case basis with allocated.
I'd even say that outside of the service entry, we won't expand services. Because I don't think we want to extend that water line anymore, because that was expensive to put in.
Any more questions on this? Good report.
Just for clarification, basically what we want to look at is this summary chart that sums up really what, like, the point of this isn't to control, we want capacity to be used as it's given out.
Yes.
Like, I think that's what we really need to focus on, is that's what this was put in place for, is if you take capacity, you use it. Like, we kind of get off, we don't want to control who's getting in, who isn't getting in. If somebody's gonna build, here's the rules. Like, and I'm not saying that we expended it, but essentially what this policy is for is here's the rules for the capacity we are giving. Right? Like, we're getting lost somewhere in the rest of this.
Fire.
Yeah, like, here's what it is.
Use it or lose it is what you're saying.
Exactly. So if they want to do a thing in Campbellville, you know what I mean? You got this much time, we've got this much capacity of water, and off you go. Like, I don't think we should be constraining ourselves down to we pick and choose.
But the annual report will show the expiration dates.
100%.
And then we'll see, okay, the 20% of the allocation is going to expire in 30 days.
Yes.
Unless something happens, and we need to know stuff like that. But I like the expiration idea and having a report on that, and it'll be clear, and everybody will know, and we'll know the rules. And if people aren't using it, it evaporates and somebody else gets it. Or if they apply for it.
I still have to be helpful for like the Walmart.
Yeah.
All right.
Great, that's great.
But, so there's the other side of it.
Mhm.
Anybody that's already got plans won't be subject to this though, right? This is just moving forward.
Who's currently approved would be just allocated.
So I guess that's kind of where Greg's thing of what's our capacity, what have we allocated, and what's left is the first thing we need to see. And then from there, like John says,
Yep.
we'll get to see who's now in the new system of this expires.
And prioritization too.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, what is then, do we have a list of when we prioritize, talk about prioritizing, is there a standard that we meet where we say, once we hit 80%, our priority is affordable housing, this, like, right now it says first come, first serve. So we're not really prioritizing who gets allocation after this. I think anything before 80%, before we have to do an EA, we're okay, and a housing freeze. After that, do you want to think about prioritizing this, if you're gonna do these, if you're gonna move quickly here, like,
Or do I prioritize business to get the tax revenue up? I'm pretty.
yeah, like,
And with expiration, you could float above and below that 80%.
yes.
You could, some years you could be at 84%, and if a bunch expires, and now you're at 78%. You could go back and forth.
You could go back and forth and,
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
no,
cut
no,
off.
go ahead. No.
Yeah, you took a breath. I thought I jumped
No.
in.
But it's
I just gonna say
better accounting. This is better accounting.
I don't see anything in here that says, some major developer has a development that they haven't pulled the trigger on in 5 years and they know they've been given allocation. I think they fall under this. Like, if you haven't started building,
Yes.
you're now into a 2-year timeframe. So you can pull the trigger and get going, or you lose it, because that's what we don't want to do, is be held hostage to some of these major developers.
Let's get a legal opinion on that.
I don't,
If
that's fine.
they've already been, if they've kind of guaranteed, like, if we've done the process,
People, yes.
yeah, I don't know if you can do that without them.
Yeah, you're not gonna tell them.
If they put their services in. It's true.
no, but this says, once you've started building,
Yeah.
you're not losing it. So as long as you're starting up and it takes you start up on a day before your 2 years is up, you've got it, right? You're not gonna put the water lines in. You may not even build your first house for 18 months.
Right.
You started your build, you're in, that's fine.
But it's still an empty
But
field.
we approve subdivisions that nobody pulls the trigger on, well, our entire term of council. You lose your allocation. Now you've got to reapply to get your allocation, because otherwise there's somebody sitting there saying, I'll go now. Right? I'll pull the trigger on mine. I'm ready to rock.
If they've been denied because we don't have capacity.
Right.
We're not really at that point yet, but the day may come.
Like,
And this prepares us for that day.
I mean, you get major developer that, and they can do these things. They got the money, right? They can sit there and they can put a plan in place, not pull the trigger for 10 years. And if you've got 5 of those in your community,
Yeah.
it's like,
And I agree with you.
but we can't even get more capacity because we're not at
The deal is
80%.
right now that there's capacity that isn't being used.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're not at that critical point yet, but this is a great thing to get home. Because the day will come when we get to 81%. And we're going up and down. And we want to be able to manage the capacity in a way and manage the developers in such a way that when we give out allocation, it's very clear that we want it. And we'll be able to police that.
Yeah.
Maybe not now, maybe 7 or 8, 15 years from now. I don't know when, but it's a good policy to put in now to plan for the future problems.
I was going to say, I mean, I think this is exactly what we need. When you said it's a good policy, it's a great policy to be putting in place. And like very forward thinking. We've had these discussions in the last 3.5 years and, how much capacity do we have and how much is already handed out, and it's hard to answer. So this is going to allow those answers to be.
But we're dealing with it now before.
Great policy to bring up.
Okay, well, with that, I'll bring a motion to adjourn.
So when this comes back, will we see,
Yeah.
will we see the allocation number? We're gonna see
We
capacity.
can bring what we have and it's gonna look very similar to last year. We did a presentation on that bridges, the plant and we shared a table like this.
Yeah.
It's gonna look very
Run
similar
the
to this
motion
table.
to adjourn. I saw a second by Council Brand. All in favor?
Yeah.
Motion carries.
We'll figure this out there. We're not 80%.
Right.
But we still.
Wow.
What time we got?
I can't exactly.
You're
Yeah.
you're
Not in Strathroy.
No, it's like